What's up, YouTube? It is your boy JB, and I am here today with a review for Greenleaf. This is season 4, episode number 8, and the episode was titled Surprise. So, you guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and just get right into the video. Alright, so the episode. This episode, it opens, we see Grace, she's in her office, and she's talking to Judy Whitmore. And, she's trying to figure out, like, why is Judy here? And, she's like, so I'm guessing you're here because Charity, redid the new arrangement for, the song, the welcome song. She's like, nope, that's not why I'm here. Hope and Harmony would never do something like that. Or Harmony and Hope. So, the reason why Judy is actually here, she said, because I hear that you met Fernando. She's like, yeah, I did meet Fernando. And then, she's like, so why come y'all have been so secretive about what's going on that y'all are buying all this land up around here? Like, you're being secretive. So what's up with that? So then Judy's like, well, you know what? We wanted it to be a surprise to you guys, but you've already found out now. So they bought up all the land around, bought up everything around the church because when her dad comes back in 2 weeks, they're planning to unveil that, they have bought it up because what they want to do is they want to build so much stuff around there. They want to, more than just a parking lot. They want to have like restaurants around there. They want to have a gym around there. They want to have, basically they want to turn this into a shopping center. I'm like, oh, wow, a shopping center around a church. So then, later in the episode, we saw Judy. She went back to Grace's office again. And then she asked her, so this party that we're having, because I went here to this room and they're talking about they need to have this stuff for a party. So what kind of party are we having? And, she just said it's a party that her parents are putting together. And she's like, this wouldn't be about what we talked about earlier. She said, you didn't tell your parents by chance, did you? She said, yes, I did tell my parents. She's like, oh, well, good. So you wouldn't mind if I come, right? And Grace is like, yeah, you can come along. Come as my +1. And I'm like, okay, her +1. I'm like, why are you doing this, Grace? Like, really? And we'll talk about what the party is in a few minutes. So then we also see Judy. So Judy has the board members together, and she's telling them what the plan is. So then the deacons are like, so how is this going to be funded? And she said, well, it's not going to be funded with the church's money. She said, Harmony and Hope are going to fund this completely. But in return, what we want is, 50, seats on the board. And they were like, well, how many seats on the board do you want? She says 50%. And one of them was like, well, who do you expect to quit? She says, nobody. She says, what we want to do is we want to expand. And with that expand, we want to bring in 12 people. That way, it'll be, 12-12. So you guys and us, half of the shares. So, then, because it's Grace, it's Judy, and it's Phil. They're in there with them. And so they're like, you know what? We're going to leave you guys to convene and talk about this. Once they walk out the door, Connie immediately says she wants to figure out how they can do this. And I'm like, you would, dude. Of all people, I'm like, Connie, you are a sellout. So then, Grace is telling Phil and Judy, like, this is not going to work out. Like, I'm not going to let this happen. And, she just tells her, like, 50%, that's a bit much. It is a bit much. Like, you guys just come in here, now you also all of a sudden want a seat at the board. Ooh. Wow. You all of a sudden want a seat at the board now that you just come in. Crazy. Alright, so Grace, we saw her when she told Lady May, it was Bishop, and it was Jacob. So she told them what the plans are for the land that Judy told them. So Bishop, he's like, I don't believe it, and he doesn't accept it. And she's like, it ain't much that you can do, Daddy. Like, they've already bought it. They have, they have control of so much. So there's not much that we can do at this point. And then Lady May hits Jacob, and she's like, well, how could you sell the land to them? He's like, well, I didn't know that they were Harmony and Hope. And, May's like, well, Carissa knew. He's like, no, Mama, Carissa said she didn't know. She says, Jacob, what you got to do is you got to stop letting these women lead you around like some pony on a rope at a seedy carnival. And he says again, I really don't believe Carissa knew. Lady Mae says Carissa would sell the water out of that lake out there from under me if it meant to her that she could get out of this house and get her own house. And I'm like, you are so correct, Lady Mae. Like Carissa would sell Winky and Zora out just to move out of that house. So then, Bishop, he asked Grace. So he was like, so what do they want? She's like, surprisingly, they don't want anything. This is before she had had the meeting with Judy. But she was like, surprisingly, they don't want anything, and this won't come in. No cash will come from the church. So then Jacob mentions to Lady Mae and Lady Mae and Bishop that they talk about Phil. She's like, what is that greasy Negro up to? He's like, well, he hasn't done anything. It's Charity, and how she believes she's in love with him. And they were like, oh my God, Charity believes she's in love with Phil. Yep, she does. So then Mae blames herself. She's like, what did I do to that girl to not, because she has a terrible choice in men. You are right. She does have terrible choices in men, but I don't necessarily think that it would be Lady Mae's fault. That is on Charity. Completely on Charity's dumbass. So, Lady Mae is telling Grace, she wants to get the board together before the vote to have a conversation with them about what Harmony and Hope have planned. And she was like, so she told Grace to get it together, and Grace was like, I can't do that. Like, I have to be a good guy. And she's like, well, how about, since your father and I are getting remarried, let's have an engagement party. That way, we could get the board members here. And she's like, okay, you can get everybody here with the exception of Connie. She's like, oh, we can get Connie here too. She says, what we have to do with Connie is we don't invite Connie because, Connie's ego is not going to let Connie not be invited to a party, especially one that Lady Mae is throwing. So, invite the board members. Don't invite Connie. What Connie's going to do is she's going to find out that she's not invited, and she's going to invite herself. I'm like, wow. Talk about ego. Like, she would invite herself to a party that she's not invited to. Cool. I don't know why anybody would want to do that, but okay, Connie. I can see it. I can definitely see it with that gutter snipe. All right, so next we have Carissa and Jacob. So Jacob goes to the room and Carissa asks him, like, how did things go? He says, about as well as can be expected. And he says, you know what? Let me ask you a question. Well, she says, you know what, Jacob? Let me ask you a question. So she tells him that, she reached out to Nadine and, they did not get the house because they went with a cash offer. So then she asked him, so she was like, when it comes to this house here, like, if anything were to happen to Bishop and Lady Mae, who would get it? He says, I don't know. She says, it's probably between three of you, you, Grace, and Charity. She's like, do you think that we could buy them out? And she says, I don't know. She's like, what can you find out? He says, I can, but I don't want to. And she's like, it's just like she's guilt tripping him into doing this. And he says, let me ask you a question. She's like, okay, shoot. He's like, why were you with Fernando? She says, oh, cufflink. I'm trying to get you the cufflinks. He said, cufflinks? She's like, yeah, you remember you like those cufflinks so much. So I was trying to figure out where Fernando got those cufflinks from so that I could get them for you. He was like, oh, my mind went somewhere else. She's like, yeah, I'm sure it did. And then she tried to play the saint, the martyr, everything with this one. And she was like, there were many of nights that I didn't know where you were. And I'm just like, really, Carissa, you was cheating on him. Sorry, y'all. Like, you was cheating on him, but now you want to sit here and play this game like, oh, you want to play holier than thou, the saint. Miss me with that, Carissa. So then later in the episode, we saw Jacob. So Jacob went to talk to Dante at a bar that he's doing, I guess he's going to open. So Jacob tells, Dante that he has an idea that can help him. Since the league wants him to apologize, he can get around this, just a way to get around that is to do what LeBron James did in his hometown. Open up a school. He was like, okay, so you want me to open a school? He was like, not necessarily. He's like, why don't you throw some money behind a school that's already open? How about excellence? He's like, excellence? He's like, isn't it that the school that your wife works at? He says it is. And Dante gets pissed off because Dante's like, well, damn, I thought you were different from everybody else. You're just like Nikki and my other friends. Like, all I see is your hands out to me asking for money. So Dante's like, you know what, man, I'm good. And I'm like, Jacob, you really shouldn't have did that. Like, he's talking about he's trying to make up with, he's in a doghouse with Carissa. No, you're not in a doghouse with Carissa. Carissa's actually in a doghouse with you, but you're just too stupid to see it. Actually, you way too stupid to see that shit. That she's in a doghouse with you. You let her guilt trip you. So then we also see Zora. So Zora and Nikki, they're at the cabin and they are putting together a slideshow that May wants them to put together for this engagement party. And then Sophia comes in with them and she's sulking. I'm like, why is she sulking? Like, I know this can't be because of AJ. I really can't imagine that this is because of AJ, but if it is, why? Like, really? Why would she be in her? Why is she in her feelings? Like, I was confused about that the whole time. Why was she in her feelings when she went in the cabin? That made no sense to me. All right, so right now we about to group in our two least favorite dumbasses together, which is Phil and Charity. So we saw Phil. So Phil was talking to Judy. So Judy was feeling on everything with the reason that they're buying the land, and he was like, so I'm finding out after Grace found out. I'm like, oh, Phil, you're jealous. You're jealous. Technically, Grace stumbled upon it, and I mean, you're just nobody. Like, you are the slave boy for Bob and Judy at this point. Like, you don't really realize that they're just using you. And Phil was like, you know what? If you guys had told me your plans, that he could have I guess smoothed things over. I'm like, okay. So then, Judy tells him, you know what? Don't worry, Phil, because whatever deals that daddy made to you, they're still good. I'm like, oh, are you sure? Are you sure? So then we see Bishop. He's with Charity. He's asking Charity, like, why did you sneak around our back? Why did you slither around like a snake with Phil behind our backs? And she is more so worried about who told you. Like, Grace told you, didn't he? He's like, well, technically, it really wasn't Grace that told him. It was, Jacob that told her. And, she has this vendetta against Grace. So then he asked her, like, why did you keep it a secret? She said she kept it a secret because of how Bishop is acting now. And Bishop says, I'm only acting in this way now because you lied to us. You snuck around our backs with this dude. So, yes. So then he asked her, what do you see in him? And she says, we have some of the same values. He's kind, he's hardworking, and he's chaste. And he's a lot like me. A lot like you, huh? So that would imply that he's a dumbass and a snake in the grass. Sounds about right, huh? Yeah. So then, she says he also knows what it's like to be on a team that never asks you up to bat. And Bishop was like, what does that mean? Exactly. What does that mean? She says, you know what? If I tell you a secret, can you keep it a secret? He looks at her like, really, Charity? Is this where we're going? So she tells him, so, Phil, everything that Bob says, the books, everything, that is all Phil. And Bishop was like, oh, so he's not only willfully ambitious, he's stupid. I'm like, correct, Bishop. Just like your daughter. Stupid as hell. So then she says, well, will you at least meet with him? And Bishop was reluctant at first, but then he says, you know what? Invite him to the party, and I'll see how I feel about him. So then we see Charity. She is talking to Phil about the party. And, so he says, so your family knows about this. Now, she says, yes, they're willing to invite you to the party. And, he was like, I don't really know if I should go. She was like, why not? And then he's in his feelings because he's like, I have this recording of Grace that you don't want me to use. And she's like, and then he's like, at the end of it, once everything is said and done, he feels like the only thing that he's going to gain out of this is a girlfriend. I'm like, ooh, now Charity, that should have told you something right then and there. When he said all he gets out of this is a girlfriend, he does not really 100% care about you. He don't even 50% care about you. He said that only thing he gets out of this is a girlfriend. and you didn't catch. I mean, she got upset, but then she got over it. I'm like, you diphthong. Like, he doesn't want you that. He don't want you like that. He's using you. But again, she's too stupid to see that. I'm like, you dumbass. All right. So let us jump right back to Carissa. So Carissa, we see Carissa. She goes in to try to talk to Bishop. She says that she needs this their marriage certificate, so that Zora can put it together for this slideshow that she's doing. And Bishop was like, oh, I got this. Let me go to the safe and get it out. So Bishop goes to the safe and he unlocks it. And she was like, so do you keep everything in there? He says, yes. I keep the will in here. I keep everything in here. She's like, okay, great. He's like, you and Jacob could put some stuff in here if you want to. She says, okay. So then Lady May comes in there and she just looking, Zora, I'm not about to call her Zora Mama. Shout out to Forrest Ross for that one. But she was looking Carissa up and down. And I'm like, May, whatever you're thinking, think it. Like, Carissa's ass is up to no fucking good. So then, May asked him, like, so what's going on once Carissa leaves? He says, oh, she was just here, trying to get the marriage license. And she was like, oh, okay. I'm like, May, again, whatever's in that brain of yours, you're correct. Especially when it comes to that gutter snipe. So then we see, as May said to Grace earlier in the episode about Connie, not inviting her. She'll see that, she'll see other people get invited, and then she will want to invite herself. And that did happen. Connie in her bad wig went to Corinne and said, I heard that Misty got invited to the party at the mansion. What's going on over there? She says, yes, it's an engagement party. She says, oh, well, I'm assuming that mine just got, lost in the junk mail. She's like, no, it didn't get lost in the junk mail. She's like, well, you can resend it to me. She says, no, it didn't get lost. What I can do is I can say that you're coming. She says, yes, do that. Say that I'm coming. And Corinne was like, right on the dot. Like, to the minute. That is really sad that Connie's ego was that big that you weren't invited to a party and you hear that everybody else is invited to it, so you're going to invite yourself to it. I would not. That sounds like Amanda Seals. Like, I just wouldn't do it. Absolutely not. All right, you guys. So the party is underway. So, everybody's there. So we see, we actually saw Grace. So Grace walked up to Charity to, have a conversation with Charity. And, because Grace was talking about her relationship with Phil. And then Charity just turns around and she goes off on Grace talking about AJ and what she's done. And Grace was like, what are you talking about? She says, you lied to the police about AJ's alibi. And, Grace was like, don't say anything that could hurt him. But Charity's selfish ass does not care. Like, oh my God. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, like, Charity, you do realize that you're in the bed with yourself. The devil himself would feel, but whatever. She doesn't care. So then we see May with one of the board members, and she's planting a seed of doubt about, with those 12 seats that Harmony and Hope are asking for. They don't necessarily know who would be those 12 people. And then all they would need is one extra vote to have the majority, and they can take control and do whatever they want at that point. So I think that was Clara. And then we also see Clara. She's talking to Nikki and Zora, and she actually confused Nikki for Sophia. And I'm like, how in the hell did she confuse Nikki for Sophia? Like, I guess because they're light skinned. I don't know. So then we see Bishop. So Bishop is talking to Phil. And he asks Phil, what are your plans for my daughter? And he says he wants to get to know Dum Dum and see where it goes from there. And I'm like, oh. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what we're masking it as? That you want to get to know her and see where things go from there? Cool. So then we see May. She asks him, so what's the verdict? And Bishop says, you know what? I'm not quite sure what the verdict is with him right now. Like, either he's either really good at what he's good at trying to pretend like he wants to get to know her, or he is just that bad. Like, he doesn't know what to believe with Phil. So then we see Phil talking to Charity, and Charity asks him how did things go. He says, oh, things went well with her. with Bishop, but he said, you know what, I did see you and Grace arguing. What was that about? She says, oh, Grace thinks she's, the judge in a jury. And, he says, he asked her if he should use the recording. She says no. And then we see him, he goes and talks to Judy. And when he talks to Judy, we find out that he and Judy had a relationship with one another. I'm like, oh, the plot thickens. So then we see Bishop. He gives his little toast, and then he hands things off to May to give her toast. And May, she did her speech. Hold on, where am I at? Oh, so yeah, so he did it. He passed his speech to May. So then Connie asked Grace if she knew what was going on, and she was like, "No, I did not know." So then we see Carissa. So Carissa, she dips out, and Jacob asks her like, "So where are you going?" She says, "I'm going to see Fernando." I'm like, "Really? Okay." Actually, she's going to call Fernando. So May is giving this speech about 50-50. She's talking about, and basically with it, she's talking about you can't have 50% on this side and 50% on this side because you can't let the Lord in. So, she's basically telling the deacons don't go for that 50% at all. So then, so we saw that Sophia left. So Sophia went to the cabin, and then you could hear somebody shuffling in, and she goes and see who it is, and it's Dante. So Dante is dropping off some stuff that Nikki had left over his place. So then, Sophia introduces herself to Dante, and Dante was like, "You want to get out of here? Like, let's go for a ride." She's like, "Where are we going?" He says, "Anywhere. A ride is always good to clear your head." So we see those two. They leave and go for a ride. So then later in the episode, we saw Judy. So she was upset with Phil. She was upset, and then, like I said, Phil checks on her. And she said she found out, he asked her, like, when did you find out about this? She says, I found out about this 3 days ago. After saying, he could have cleared a path, which I said that earlier. He could have cleared a path with all this stuff. And she says, you know what? My husband is divorcing me. And then here you are over there happy with Charity. And I don't know if I would say he's happy with Charity. I really wouldn't say that. So then we see Bad with Connie. She tells May, you put on a stellar performance for the Sisters of Tamar and, this whole story about your father, but your father's not here to, negate that story that you're telling. And May's like, you really believe that I made up a story about my father, molesting me, raping me? Like, okay, Connie, get out, let God be with you. I was like, Lady May, you better than me. I would have gave Connie and that badass wig a good old blessing in so many choice words. So, because yeah, she's talking about everything she does is a ploy. I'm like, you tripping. You tripping, Connie. Thoroughly tripping. But we gonna move on. All right, so then lastly, Bishop, he's talking to Charity's old dumbass. And he's like, right now I think that you need to put things on the back burner with Phil right now until Grace becomes, the permanent head pastor of the church. And then she gets upset. It's always about Grace. It's always about Grace. And I'm like, oh God, Bishop, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Because I'm like, something bad is gonna happen with this dumb fool. And so we see Judy. She goes, she's in Grace's office once again, and she's upset. And then she tells Grace, she says, you know what, with this new campus, we were going to have to be run by you. And I was like, oh, so they were going to, she like, no intern pastor. You were going to be the permanent head pastor of this church. And they wanted her to get them the seats on the board. And then we see the devil herself. Go to Phil and tell Phil to use the recording to send it to Bob. Do whatever you got to do. I don't care what you have to do, but just send that recording to Bob. And I'm like, you dumb bobblehead bitch. Like, that was your family's plan this whole time, was for y'all to get the church back. No one gave a shit about Phil. And the fact that you are in this so-called relationship with him, nobody cares. Charity, like, oh my God, she gets on my damn nerves. I just want to reach for the TV and slap the shit out of Charity. She gets on my fucking nerves so badly. But you guys, that was Greenleaf. Be sure to like the video. We only have 2 episodes left. Like the video, leave your comments, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification button so you guys know when I drop anything, and also share this video, and I will see you guys later.